It was fight night at United Center against the Blackhawks. We'll talk about it on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez, covering hockey for over a decade. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I've been covering hockey for over a decade. I'm currently the PA voice for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and I've also covered minor hockey for a long time as well. All right, let's get right into things. The Ducks and Blackhawks played for draft rights, so to speak. They're playing for futility. This is the 30th and now 31st place teams in the National Hockey League, but none of that mattered. It was all about the action that took place in the third period. That's what everyone's talking about. I mean, yeah, Connor Bedard had a 5-point game. I'm not even going to talk much about that because this isn't Locked On Blackhawks. No, this is Locked On Ducks. And yes, the Ducks should be tanking at this point because they're practically out of a spot by now. And I'll talk more about that next episode. And I'll talk more about the lack of discipline next episode too, because that deserves its own thing. But I want to talk about the fight because I'm in a mood right now, okay? The Ducks lost by a big margin, but you know what? Give me my goalie fight. Give me my John Gibson fight. Look, I know we want fighting out of the game. I know it's not good, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't know. I don't care about that. My lizard brain is, wow, I can't even talk right now. But I'm going to keep this all in because I'm feeling it right now. My lizard brain is thinking, fight, 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 fight. And you know what? John Gibson could kick anyone's butt in a goalie fight right now because I don't think y'all understand how much pent-up rage John Gibson has. I kid you not. He has had to put up with a lot of crap the last few years. Oh, he's not a good goalie. Oh, he's way over. Oh, he's over it. No, you know what? Screw that. Okay? Screw all that. John Gibson is still a pretty good goalie. Yes, he had a bad outing against the Blackhawks. Was any of those on him? Maybe one of those was on him. A couple of those goals, he was just completely left out to dry where the defense didn't do crap for him or there was a turnover right in front of him. You can't do anything about that, or a good screen. You can't really do much about that either. It sucks. Okay? John Gibson still has had his share of good games this season. He has had several games this season where if it wasn't for John Gibson, the Ducks would have lost or they would have not gotten a point. All right? I just want to point that out right now. John Gibson is still a fine goaltender. Maybe not so much in this game against the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, that was one of his worst outings all season long. This outing actually put him back in the negatives for game score average this season, which sucks. It just sucks. He didn't have the worst game out of everyone on the Ducks roster, though. I mean, Olen Zellweger had a game to forget. You know who didn't have a game to forget? Was Pavel Mintyukov. He had first off, he had a pretty solid game overall in this one. He was one of the better Ducks players on this night that wasn't named Brett Leeson. But damn, I can't believe that Minty had it in him. I mean, here he is right after this whole brawl. I actually got to start with how this all began. So with about 11 minutes left in the third period, Ducks are already losing 6-2 at this point. And right after Frank Vetrano just pinged one off the post, a couple seconds later, we're about to go into the first TV timeout. And all of a sudden, you saw Mason McTavish and Jared Tenorti get into it. It looked like McTavish may have started this. Look, McTavish did not have his best game. He was frustrated. He had a lot of pent-up frustration in this game. He already took a dumb penalty earlier in the game, which resulted directly in a goal. So yeah, Mac not having the best of nights. And at first glance, it looked like he started it, but, it looked like he started like a little shoving match with Tenorti. They looked like they were roughing. It looked like at first not much more was going to happen. And then all hell broke loose. Radko Gudas stepped right in there and went after Mackenzie Entwistle. And Radko just laid out one solid punch right to Entwistle and just had him down. Mackenzie was turtling. He didn't want any more. So Gudas had his fist raised and he was about to stop, right? He wasn't going to throw any more punches, right? Right. When you're already turtling like that and you see a guy going like this, you're normally going to stop. And Radko Gudas did the right thing there by just laying out one and then stopping. That's fine. But then Peter Mrazek tried to step in there. And he was trying to face wash Radko Gudas. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I didn't like that too much. So then you had Mintyukov trying to defend his teammate. And then Reese Johnson goes after Mintyukov. I'm like, oh, crap. Like, Minty's getting in a fight. Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden you see the two, Mintyukov and Reese Johnson, starting to circle a little bit, starting to square. And then all of a sudden, you just had Mintyukov just land. You know what? Even though it's blurry, I'm going to show it. Bam! Right there. How do you like that? How do you like Mintyukov just laying out Reese Johnson? I know it's kind of blurry here, but you know what? That punch was square right on the nose, making him bleed afterwards. Yeah, Reese Johnson was bleeding from the nose afterwards. That was just a solid shot. So, Pavel Mintyukov, I am sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game at all, but you know what? I love it. I freaking love it. Look at that hook. Look at that right hook. Just connected. Right square on the nose. That's what you love to see from your young player. That's a good sign. Maybe others will see this go, oh, we're not going to mess with this guy. Mintyukov can defend himself. Minty can throw a punch. Minty's starting to throw some hits too. And you know what? I love it. I freaking love it. Minty with the coup de grace. But that wasn't the final part of this fight. No, the best part came at the very end. After Mintyukov threw that right hook, John Gibson, who was drinking his water near the bench because it was a TV timeout, as soon as he saw Peter Mrazek try to face wash Radko Gudas, and then Mrazek was ready to throw a punch, Gibby's like, oh, hell no. No, you do not do that. So Gibby comes right over, tosses his skate down toward the ice, loosens up his hand, loosens up his glove hand, which came off. And all of a sudden, you see Gibby going like this, like, all right, let's freaking go. Let's go right now. The ref says, no, we're not going to do this. The ref could have, we could have had a moment of glory here. Okay, we could have. And John Gibson was ready to just throw down. He got to Mrazek. He started face washing him. And just as he was going to throw a punch, the ref was right there to stop it. So what does Gibby do? He rips off his, he literally reaches from behind and reaches out and just gets him. Freaking gets him. Love it. Love that so much. Gibby just pulled off the helmet, was ready to go, and the ref stopped it. And you know what? I defy any other goalie to say, you know what? I can take on John Gibson. Y'all don't understand what Gibby has been through. He's been through hell the last few years. I have said over and over on this podcast, Gibby deserves a minute alone in the locker room with some of those guys who have left him out to dry, or as the common thread has been on Ducks Twitter, give him the taser. Give Gibby the taser, okay? Just leave him alone in a room for 5 minutes with the rest of his teammates and just give him the freaking taser and let whatever happens. Let it happen. So yeah, give Gibby the taser. Give him something. Or maybe his teammates owe him the biggest steak dinner ever. Because that's what it freaking felt like. John Gibson has all this pent-up rage, this pent-up anger. And this is not the first time that we had a goalie fight prevented. This happened last year. Remember last year against the Los Angeles Kings, where it could have been Phoenix Copley against John Gibson. And what happened? The refs decided to stop it. They tried to stop it, and we missed out from what could have been a glorious moment, and instead we're left wondering, yeah, could Gibby have kicked his... Yes, he could have kicked his ass. I'm sorry. But John Gibson, you could just tell in his eyes. You could tell in his rage. He has been in the middle of scrums several times. Gibby has committed penalties against skaters ready to fight. And we've seen Gibby try to throw down multiple times, and the refs won't let him. You know why the refs probably won't let him? Because they know he'll kick his ass. They know that Gibby will win that fight. I just want to, just one time, I just want to see us go back to the olden days. And by the olden days, I mean the 90s, the early 2000s, the hockey I was watching when I was growing up. I want to see that battle, that Patrick Waugh-like battle. Just one time. I want to see it. I want to see it happen because you just need it. Sometimes it's therapeutic in a way to see one goalie kick another goalie's ass. Just once. We're going to head into the first intermission. I'm actually going to talk about the game itself. That segment won't last long, folks, but we'll get to that on the other side. And now a brief word from... Where are we at here? A brief word from anyone. It's Sleeper. Yeah. Just like the Sleeper that anyway. We're almost at the end of the season. And regardless of where the Ducks are in the standings, which is 30th, I got to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also play fantasy NFL, which is off season, or fantasy baseball, which hasn't even started yet, or fantasy NBA, which is going on. Hey, something's going on there. Hallelujah. There should be fantasy boxing, folks. There really should. Just pick whether guys like McKinnon or McDavid or some other Mac player will record more or less than their Sleeper projections, like goals, assists, whatever. Just correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Ducks fans. 8 player stats gets you 100 times your bet. So use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. We're also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performers. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, like Mintyukov is, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win, like Mintyukov did. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. That's right. Even though I still want to talk about that fight and how glorious it was and how no one's going to mess with Gibby and how no one's going to mess with Mintyukov, we do have a game that we actually got to talk about because this is Locked On Ducks. After all, do I have to talk about this game? Maybe I'll talk about it for a few minutes, if that. It was a BS show. That's what it was. It really was. The Ducks' lack of discipline, which, again, is going to be its own episode, the next one. It was glaring in this one. The Ducks committed 6 penalties. Alex Killorn, holding penalty. Okay, that one's an okay one because at least Brett Leeson got a shorty. That was cool. And then subsequently after that, Ryan Donato scored in a power play. 1-1 tie, just like that. Okay, fine, whatever. And then Brett Leeson did it again. The Ducks had a 2-1 lead. And I'm going, you know what? I love this because I hate the Blackhawks. I still hate them for what they did in 2015. I will never get over that. Yeah, can you tell I wasn't really a fan of the Blackhawks? Okay, no one here in Southern California is a fan of the Blackhawks, especially if you grew up or at least were into hockey between the years of 2012 and 2016. You were not a fan of the Blackhawks. Kings fans, you hated the Blackhawks. Ducks fans, you hated the Blackhawks. They were our common enemy for the better part of 5 seasons. So when the Ducks took the lead 2-1, my initial thought was, yeah, kick their ass, beat them. Nope. My dreams were squashed because after that, the Blackhawks just completely took over. Philip Khrushchev scored. Then Seth Jones on the power play on what I thought was not good penalties. Frankie tripping McTavish, not a good tripping call. And actually both those penalties bugged me. Because it wasn't the Ducks that got too many men. It was the Blackhawks that got too many men. Oh my God. A Ducks opponent got too many men. The Blackhawks got too many men. Sacre bleu. So the Ducks are on a power play ready to take back the lead because it was tied 2-2 at this point. And I was thinking, okay, Ducks have a shot here. They actually have a shot. They could take the lead. Nope, because on the offensive zone, Frank Vatrano, tripping penalty. And then again in the offensive zone, Mason McTavish, tripping. Those are the kind of penalties that drive me nuts. Yes, the penalties that can be avoidable, those hurt. But penalties in the offensive zone are just as bad, if not worse. Because you got a chance to take the lead, and then you commit 2 dumb penalties, and what do you think's going to happen if you're on a 4-on-3? Good passing from Connor Bedard and Nick Foligno. Seth Jones just blasted one, 3-2 Blackhawks. And then at the end of the period, I don't know what the Ducks were doing on defense at the end of the second. Did they relax at the end of the second? Were they just trying to go into the break? I guess maybe. Because Connor Bedard scored his 20th. All of a sudden, it's 4-2 Blackhawks. Ugh. And then after that, Andres Athanasiou just literally swiped the puck away as the Ducks were trying to get it out of the zone, and they didn't. I know that the Ducks are very much short-handed right now. I know. But William Lagesson. Yeah, that's a play that he wants back. He had the puck on his stick, turned it over to Athanasiou, and he just passed it right over for another goal for the Blackhawks, right to Mackenzie Entwistle. Make it 5-2. And then another power play right after that. Literally seconds after that was scored, Bogru got a double minor for high-sticking Reese Johnson. So Reese Johnson, who was already, whatever. Yeah, Bogru caused Reese Johnson to bleed. That was the first time he would bleed. Yeah, but that was only a little bit of blood, but there was blood. And that's how that goal was scored. Oh, yeah, Reese Johnson bled a lot on this one. Yeah. It's a game that he kind of wants to forget about, but you know what? It doesn't matter because the Blackhawks won. 7-2. Tyler Johnson got a power play goal. because of that scrum. So final score was 7-2. This was, by the way, the third game in a row. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to get to like all of that stuff after this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the second intermission right now, talk a little bit more about this game, talk about the bad and the ugly, and, you know, we'll get to that after this brief intermission. Stay locked in. Now a brief word from FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the NCAA tournament. That's right, it is March, it is madness. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get, $200. My bad earlier. $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, futures. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, gamble responsibly. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason J.D. Hernandez. Let's talk a little bit more about this one. I'm going to get to the good, then the bad, then the ugly. The good. Brett Leason scored both goals for the Ducks on this game. Both of them. Brett Leason's been pretty solid this season. He needed this opportunity. I mean, I would love to see him on the Ducks next season. I think he's been solid despite minimal playing time, despite parts where he would just, I don't want to say get benched, but parts where he would just kind of be forgotten. He's had more good moments than not. And for some reason, he's not getting played enough. I mean, yes, there's depth in the Ducks roster when everyone's healthy. Leason will be in the fourth line. But you know what? Give him this chance. You know, put him, leave him up on the top six. Because when he's had his chances, he's been good. He's been very good. So, nice to see him get that chance. But then the bad. The fourth Blackhawks goal, which I just talked about. That was bad. Now the ugly. Dostal came into the game. He subsequently gave up a goal. So, yeah. Dostal, didn't look that good at the start. Now let's get to the really ugly. The Ducks have allowed 6+ goals again. This happened last season too. The last time the Ducks gave up 6+ goals in 3 consecutive games go all the way back to literally this time last year. February 10th through February 17th, 2023. What were those games? Well, I tweeted about it. February 10th, they lost 6-3 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Then they went to Vegas, got their butts kicked 7-2. Then a couple of days after that, they lost to the Buffalo Sabres 7-3. And then the 17th, they lost to the LA Kings 6-3. That was a pretty memorable game for those of you that might remember that. Yeah. Not in a good way, but it was memorable. So, what's going on here? Defense is letting them down once again. Lack of discipline, which I'm going to talk about in detail on the next episode. There's a lot bad going on, and defense is a part of it. Lack of discipline is a part of it. Taking bad penalties is a part of it. I mean, it's all a part of it. All of it. Injuries are a part of it too. I've talked about injuries so much on this podcast. At what point is it not an excuse? Maybe at this point, just embrace the tank. Just lose the rest of the games. Maybe you'll wind up with the number one pick. Who knows? So, yeah, the good, the bad, and ugly, all encapsulated in one game. But you know what? My best takeaway from this is Pavel Mintyukov is a bad, bad man. He is. You know what? I want to end it on that note because Minty's a bad man. Yep. Right on the nose, baby. All right. Hey, I got to be happy about something, okay? I got to at least cheer about something. I have to laugh a little bit. Otherwise, I would just be talking about the stupid stuff over and over again. No. Mintyukov, lights out, baby. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, etc., etc. You could follow me on Twitter at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. I'll open up the mailbag next week, not this week, next week. And also, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.